Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Diaries of a Six-Figure Coach podcast. I am so excited about season 2 because I'm having all these incredible conversations with these epic women in my community, these amazing entrepreneurs, and I'm here with one of them, Jenny Henderson. She's a brand strategist and a designer, and actually she develops memorable brand experiences and a strategic brand foundation. And you know, I'm a strategy girl and I love that. So I'm so excited to talk to Jenny today. And her and I met through Instagram and connecting through an Instagram community, which you all know is something that is so close to my heart right now. So Jenny, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Welcome.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and chat about branding and business. It's the best. What's better than that?
Oh my God, it's so good. And just before we actually hit record, Jenny and I were having a conversation about boring things in business, and then we were talking about consistency, and then we were talking about branding. And you know, it's so interesting because one of the things, Jenny, I hear a lot from clients, especially oftentimes for launches, but a lot of the times too for the ongoing marketing effort, is I'm so tired to keep talking about the same thing. And then I find myself having a whole little let's have a conversation about the importance of consistency in your brand and consistency in your message, and why people keep needing you to speak to what's at the core of what you do and what you want to be known for. And yeah, it can be boring sometimes, but I always say, if you're bored, then think about what way can I talk about that today in a way that excites me. We always have a choice. So I would love to know your insights, your perspective, and also more about your journey. So just.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is it is boring stuff, but repetition is recognition, right? The more you keep speaking to the same things, the more you keep showing up, you're making it easy for people to understand what it is you do, to recognize you in a sea of other brands. I always like to embrace simplicity in everything that I do. And that goes from your visual identity to your messaging. Everything needs to be really refined and distilled so that you can keep speaking and to those same messages in different ways. Again, it's all about being repetitive so that it is easy to remember. Our attention spans are so bad these days, and increasingly so every month. And so the more you can simplify how you're showing up, how you're, speaking to things, the easier it is for your audience to understand and to let that imprint on their mind what it is that you do, what those benefits are. And especially for building brand awareness through your visual identity, that consistency, I think, is the one thing people really struggle with, because we're so tempted by trends. We're so tempted by this and that, or I see a lot of people that just get really bored with their brand identity because they probably created it themselves. And so they pick a new font here, or they, change a style there. But all that does is makes it really challenging for people to recognize you, to build that trust, because you obviously don't know who you are. You keep changing things up. So it just shoots you in the foot, because people are like, oh my goodness, what's going on with them? They don't seem to understand who they are, what they want to be. And so again, when you start being really consistent and you really commit to the things that you believe in about yourself and want to show up as, it goes such a long way. But it is a little bit boring because you do want to change things up. You do get excited by other brands and other trends. But again, you have to think about the long-term goals that you have and what those small steps are that are really going to yield results and bring in new people. And then also reassure those people that you are exactly that person that's going to make the biggest difference for them on their journey.
Oh my God, I love this. And the thing that keeps ringing is repetition is recognition.
Repetition is recognition.
Repetition is recognition.
Yeah.
If you're someone struggling with repetition, it's but you want to be recognized, It's what do you really want from your business? What do you really want from your brand? What do you really want?
Yeah, you're not giving
recognition is something that we all want, because if we're a recognizable brand, we're creating long-term sustainable success. And it means that when your message comes out, people think of you. or when a word even comes up, right? Like a lot of people now in my world saying every time somebody says the word strategy, I think of you. And I was like,
exactly.
that is exactly it. Or every time somebody says, oh, I'm trying to scale, they're like, Teresa. So it's like exactly what I want people to do, but it's taken me saying it again and again.
Exactly, right? Like people, that first time somebody hears your message, they probably don't even like register, right? It takes so many times encountering your brand of business and what it is you're doing for them to slowly start to kind of like you in a little spot in their brain where they do then start to associate you with that message. And so you're really trying to, over time and committing to this message that you've obviously or hopefully used some strategy to create, that's what's really going to solidify it long term. But people just get they don't see results instantaneously. So they're like, well, obviously I should change something. But that's the thing that stalls their growth. Like you're immediately pivoting. And then that person that was maybe like 2 weeks away from reaching out to you is now you're giving them all the wrong signals. And then they're confused and they're back to square one. So it's really about having a strategy that grounds all of your efforts in terms of marketing, in terms of how you show up, in terms of, everything under the sun, and then sticking with that so that everything that you do has a purpose and you trust that those things that you've created in your strategy are actually going to deliver results and that you want to actually see it through because they are built from a place of, real honesty and authenticity. And then those are the things that I think people underestimate how important they can be for your long-term success.
Oh, it's like everything you say, I'm like nodding. I'm like,
get that strategy.
I'm like, yep, yeah, it's so important. I would love to know, what was that experience like for you as you were building your business and building your brand and, getting this recognition and, secondary to your journey, I'm just really curious, how you're supporting clients through that, because I know there's a lot of resistance and the temptation to keep pivoting and changing and this and that, is so huge. And I'm just curious what comes up for you, but I'd love to know, how do you navigate that and how has it supported your growth in your business when you started to really stick to the strategy, own your brand, own own this message that you have, and how do you see that with clients unfolding?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, when I first started, I started full time doing, my brand studio in 2020. And so it's only been 3 years, but when I started, I was doing any graphic design under the sun, just trying to keep that business afloat. And I think that's true for a lot of new businesses. In the beginning, those are your formative years. That first year or two, it's you're figuring things out, you're testing the waters, you're working with this person and that person, and you're kind of finding that path that really speaks to you, that you can't just declare, when you first start. It's going to happen naturally. Your business is going to evolve. So I think I always tell people to give themselves permission to play around, to have that exploratory time in the beginning, because whether you choose to embrace it or not, it's going to happen. Your things are going to evolve. So myself included, I slowly over the first year or two figured out that I am doing my better work when I work with other service providers. That's where my efforts really shine, and I can give more of my kind of expertise to that person. And so I start to really finesse what it is that I speak to and who I'm speaking to. And then, you really want to figure out what it is that you believe in most about the work that you're doing and leverage that as your message in a way that is going to resonate with that person you're trying to reach, right? And then, so the same thing goes for my clients. A lot of people come in, they think they just need a visual identity. And sometimes that's all that they do need in the very beginning. I would say, keep it super simple. You don't need to, dive in and embrace a whole glorious, brand development. I think you need to go through that first year or two where you're really figuring things out. And then there comes a point where you feel really clear on who you are as a business. And that's when you want to reach out and really start to dive into the strategy part, because that's where you can bring your own sense of clarity to it. And we can really work through what it is that's going to look like for you and how we can make a strategy that will support you so that you can be really clear and you can distinguish yourself from your competition, because you yourself have already learned what you don't want and what you do want and who you can help and who you can't help. And I think that's where we really want to work towards. Is like, don't dive in and invest all the strategy right away when you're very, very new. Give yourself some time to play. And then there comes a point where you just know it's time to, do the things right. Like, give yourself that foundation and, level up the brand that's going to really make you, have you reflect all your expertise in a way that you are. And I think that's the biggest part, is like, you need to communicate how incredibly talented you are, because you may know it, but if your brand doesn't communicate that, it's never going to help you grow. And I think that's the part that I think people sometimes underestimate, just how valuable that is, especially for service providers, because you can't touch and hold like a tangible product. Like, you are looking for all the clues in that brand experience that exists around that person for reassurance that it's going to be worth every penny. So that consistency, again, coming back to that, it needs to go across the board. Every single brand touch point that you have, from the freebie to your website to, whatever that looks like, everything needs to feel so cohesive, because that is so fundamental to the kind of psychology that people are thinking about when they're trying to decide if they're going to invest, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially into your service. So I think it's so crucial. You just have to be able to willing to, think about your brand and your experience from the big picture.
I love that so much. And I feel like too, what you just said is, if you're just like starting out, like you're brand new, you're like literally just like, I'm an entrepreneur now and I'm going to be a coach, or like this, or copyright, or that, or, whatever like you're going to do, and you're branching out. I think two things that came up for me as you're speaking about. One, there's a tremendous amount of knowledge that you got to gather when you're starting out, right? Just like most entrepreneurs didn't become entrepreneurs or business owners because they wanted to be entrepreneurs or business owners. They became, copywriters or graphic designers or coaches or consultants or wedding planners, or like whatever the service is that they provide to the world, because they're passionate about that. And most people always say to me, I just want to help people. And I'm like, I love it. I just want to help people. Like,
I know.
We all just want to help people. Like, I think that's in our nature. But what I find too is, as you're, the importance of gathering basic foundational knowledge is so key. And you really have to learn at the beginning so you get some understanding, and you can get the insight so well. But throughout that learning and through some of the trial and error that you mentioned, we also get to know ourselves better. And I found that in order to build a brand that is a true reflection of your business and ultimately who you are, because your values, your vision, your vibe, your style, your communication, all that forms that feeling and experience and essence that your brand is going to be. You really need to know that. And entrepreneurship, unlike actually entrepreneurship and business ownership, just like really intimate relationships, have a way that make you face yourself at your most vulnerable, and yourself in the way you love yourself and in the way you don't like yourself and everything in between. And throughout that journey, you really get to see, who am I really? What am I really here to do? What is my message really, right? Like, what are my true strengths? What are my true values? Like, what's really important? And throughout all that, this refinement can happen. Then you can refine and, level up your brand and like invest and really have even your visual be a real representation. But before that, you might still figure some of these things out, and it's quite natural. So I love that you said that, it takes a little bit of time and embracing that exploration phase too, rather than being like, oh, but I need to have everything from the beginning. And honestly, like, I say I wish somebody would have told me that. I was told some of that, but not this way. So it didn't click the same.
Yeah.
And I remember at the very, very beginning of like my coaching journey, I spent money on like good graphic stuff and brand things. And like, Also looking back, and honestly, like I still die. Like when I first had my first website, it was very brown and blue and very like masculine and like
Very nice.
and buttoned up and corporate and like it was very like, and then I had these like pirate ships out there because I was like, I'm gonna help people find their purpose. I was like running a hotel still, like doing that, like managing a big team. And I had like no interest in helping people with business because I was like, business what I was living and breathing. So my side hustle, if you will, at that point was really about like helping people find purpose and recover from burnout. I became a health coach. Because I was self-helping myself. So it was hilarious. But I remember this pivotal moment where I was like, actually, like, I might like pirates. Pirates.
Maybe this is just about the pirates. Yeah.
Not my friend. Not me. Not at all, you know? And like,
but you had to go through the pirate phase to get to this phase first.
I did. And like, we all want to have a really good like laugh or see what this transition was like. I actually, like, if you scroll to the very beginning of my Instagram, you actually can see my journey, and I never deleted it. You know, I know a lot of people who've deleted like their old things, and sometimes I think about it and then I'm reminded that actually I want you all to see it. I want people to see it and I want people to feel it, because for me, it's always been about a long game, you know, and you mentioned that. It's about like, and it's about allowing this transition to happen. And I did have that trial and error and led me here. But yeah, like to be fully expressed in my brand, very clear and concise with my messaging, and to keep saying the same thing. And look, I never run out of things to say. And I don't actually think it's boring to like, this thought that like it's boring to say the same thing again doesn't come in for me, because I've just embraced the fact that like, this is what I'm here for. Like, this is my gift.
I think that's what we come to realize over time too, is that like you really do find your voice over time in those early years. And then it's also not about when you're creating your strategy too. I think when you're working with somebody, whether it's a coach or like a brand strategist, the opportunity there at that point is you're not just looking at what you can do right now. You are working with somebody to make sure that the moves that you make and the strategy you're creating helps you with those long-term goals. You're looking at the trajectory of your business and you're forecasting for those changes as well. So while we're looking and creating things right now, you're always keeping that kind of horizon in mind. And then all of those moves that we're creating and we're kind of building that foundation are all set to bring you closer to that. And a lot of those components of your strategy are meant to evolve as well. But I think you need to have that perspective to help you, work through it in that way that will allow you to have that evolution that's authentic and maintains that integrity along the way, which is so key. But I think you also need, and this is something that I've been kind of resistant to for a long time, is just you need to be open to having somebody like a coach or a strategist or somebody beyond your business to lend you that perspective, because you can't really course correct on your own as effectively. You need outside perspective and just somebody else to like throw something back at you to make you shift how you're thinking about your own business. Because we get so bogged down by the things that we know too much in our own business. You know what I mean? Like we know too much. And so you need somebody to come at you from a different angle and make you, change how you're looking at a problem, because it will open up so many opportunities for, incredible growth.
100%. And, I think one thing that's really key too, and I think this comes particularly in when we grow, right? Like if you're starting up, this is a whole different story, because let's face it, you're going to have some time. You have time to spend in your business. You have time promoting, marketing, going out there, learning things, doing things. You'll have time. But as your business grows as a service provider, you're going to start being faced more and more with the reality of serving clients and managing your business, which is ultimately multiple, like you're doing multiple full-time jobs in one. I don't think we really fully recognize that sometimes, right? But like we're servicing clients and we're still running our businesses. And then eventually, you really have to be like, okay, everything you put in place in your business, you actually wanted to have longevity. And that doesn't mean you can't refine it or tweak it, but really we want to get out of this idea that we always have to do things again, right? Like once you have your brand and your visuals, stick with it. Stop reinventing the wheel. And what I find a lot of the times when we're in this growth phase, reinventing the wheel or always coming up with something new or changing, our branding, changing our quote templates, changing this, changing, like even just on Instagram alone, like let's just like one fraction for a second. We have this idea of constantly changing things, constantly changing, because it's a way to artificially make ourselves feel productive and doing things.
Yes. Yeah.
But what we're really doing is like, we're really distracting ourselves from focusing on the things that we really got to focus on. So when we can let that go and say, hey, this is the way my brand feels. This is the experience. I'm a hotelier at heart. I was nearly 2 decades in the hospitality industry. So for me, it's always been about the experience. And that for me is part of the brand, and that consistency between how somebody feels when they first listen to your podcast or get onto your Instagram or come to your website. And then when they join you in your programs, when they have a conversation with you, when they are receiving your services, when they're walking away from it, I want there to be a consistency throughout the entire journey of how they feel. I don't want people to come into my world and be like, that's not the same person. This feels different. This isn't right? So for me, this like feeling and consistency, it's got to be there. And the only true way and this is my perspective, and I'm totally like, like putting this out there for you, and you can take this on, or you can be like, no, it's not true for me. And that's cool too. But for me, when it's consistent, the only way to create that is to also say, this is the way it is. And I own that fully. This is the experience that I want people to have. And I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to change the vibe. I'm not going to change this. And yeah, maybe at one point there's a slight refinement, but the overall feeling, that vibe, that essence, the experience it creates and how it makes people feel emotionally always remains exactly like that. And then you don't have to keep doing new things, which guess what? It frees up time, and time is the thing you need in order to scale your business and still have like time to eat dinner and go do fun things. And like that's for me the thing where I'm like,
yeah, I think the comparison trap is what a lot of people are struggling with, is that you see, so many people in Instagram in this case, like doing this and doing that. And you're just like, oh, they're doing it so well. So you think like, oh, I should be doing that. And it totally distracts you from the thing that you're doing and the thing that is going to be what's going to take you from here to here. And so I think that's the thing. We want to work on figuring out what that is that we can commit to and really trust that what we're doing is the thing for us. And then there's confidence in that. There's like, think of all those accounts that are doing the same thing and are keeping it simple and are being exactly who they are. Those are the accounts that I'm always drawn to, because there's confidence in that simplicity and in that commitment. Like, that person knows exactly what they're doing because they are committed to being exactly who they are in every way that their brand shows up. And that really sets the expectation for what it is to work with that person. Like, that goes to show exactly what you can expect from that person. And it makes it easier for people to be like, yes, I can 100% see myself working with them. They know what they're doing and it shows. Yeah, absolutely.
It's easier for clients, and it's easier for you as the person.
And it's easier for you. Yeah.
Because you're not trying to be somebody else.
Simplicity is everything. Simplicity
is everything. It's like,
yeah.
And I feel like too, it's much harder to do things in a simple way than make things complicated. Like, making things complicated, it's because somehow we've like decided that the more complex and complicated something is, the more valuable it is. But truly, simplicity, there is nowhere to hide, right? It's like Italian food. Most Italian dishes have less than 5 ingredients.
Yes.
And it's so simple and so delicious, and there is nowhere to hide. You know exactly what it is.
Exactly.
You know exactly what it is. It's like tomatoes and burrata and basil and olive oil and salt and pepper. That's it. and it is
And you
divine.
yeah, you let those ingredients shine. That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, and I think that's a big part of what I focus on with brand strategy is it's all about that strategic simplification. Like, what are the key ingredients for your brand that you will keep coming back to, that you will keep speaking to, that are really going to harness that and embody who you are as a brand and business. And essentially what it serves as for you is a filter. So anytime you're creating a new offer or creating a new, marketing campaign or whatever that is, you filter it through that strategy. And then you make sure that it is aligning with all of those components so that you feel good about it. And it still maintains that consistency that is helping people move down that kind of customer journey towards, working and hiring or working with you or hiring you. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. And creating that consistency there and not changing it is, again, going to help everything in your business. Like, it's going to help you show up with more ease. It's going to help you welcome more clients and the clients you actually want to work with. Like, there's so much benefit in that consistency and also being devoted to it. I like, instead of like calling it discipline, I've been using the word devoted because I find it's actually deeper and more profound to me to be devoted to my mission, devoted to my message, devoted to my brand, devoted to my spiritual path, like devoted to my business in this way. It feels like I'm showing up for it and I've got a commitment behind it that's bigger than.
It's a deep connection.
It's a deep connection. So, Jenny, I could talk to you for hours.
I know.
I feel like I really want people to know where they can find you so they can follow you. They can find out more about what it is that you do, and they can, help look into their brand maybe right now with the lens of consistency. So how can people find you? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah, so my business is Jenny Henderson Studio, and that's my handle across Instagram, Pinterest, my website, same thing, all Jenny Henderson Studio. I'm really active on Instagram. I'd absolutely love to connect with people. I'm always sharing tips on strategy and just designs and things that you can do to make your content marketing more memorable and build that brand awareness, which is so important these days. Yeah.
I love that. And I know you have a gift for.
I do. Yeah. So
what is that?
Yeah. This is my favorite freebie that I have right now. It's the Conscious Brand Consistency Guide. So again, coming back to this is basically going to help you. It just gives you an elaborate look at kind of the customer journey that your, potential clients are on, and bringing them from the, stage of awareness. What are those key things that you should be doing to commit to and consistency, to bring them from that awareness phase all the way through to brand loyalty. It's full of insights and, checklists and an easy guide to just kind of implement new strategies that you can stick to around your brand experience that will create that consistency that is actually guiding people closer to moving to work with you.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. And we'll make sure that we drop the link for you to grab this guide. And I think this is so important too. One of the things I do through launches when I teach people how to launch something, I have built a style of content that ensures that your content throughout your launch period hits on every stage of the customer journey. So I love that you're using that to speak with your brand. And I think for everybody, like, grab yourself this guide, because it's so important to understand that the way you show up from a strategic perspective requires you to really take your clients on a journey and to understand that we all natural as customers, as buyers, we all go through a journey. We all are looking for something. There's a lot of sales psychology that is proven and studied that we can tap into. Like, it is not just putting a bunch of content out there or having a beautiful facade. Like, there is so much more to it. So I love that you're giving this guide. I think it's so, so important, and it will be a game changer for your business.
100%.
100%. Like, I have used this to scale a business to 8 figures. So you guys, this works. It works. So get yourself the guide. I think that's amazing. Jenny, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we wrap up this beautiful episode?
Yeah, I think just the key thing to keep in mind is keeping that big picture of the customer journey is a good one, but just really looking at what you can do to simplify everything about your brand and business in a way that you're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to recognize you, for people to understand what it is that you do, for people to build that connection with you so that it's an easy yes at the end of the day. So make things super simple so that they're more memorable and easier to say yes to. That's the key.
I love that. Jenny, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For having this convo, for sharing your wisdom. Everyone listen up, simplify, and remember this, like on repeat. You can sing this like repetition is recognition. Repetition is recognition. Repetition is recognition. That is how we're ending it. Tune back in soon. Make sure you follow Jenny at the Jenny Henderson Studio on her Instagram. Check out her website. Download the freebie. You're all awesome. Thanks for being here. This is a wrap for another episode, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care.